What is up, guys? This is QRM from the Trinity of Lift, and today I'm finally going to be bringing all of you guys my updated Geargia Karakuri deck profile for this November 2015 ban list. So yeah, Geargia Gear is back at 3. Yeah, that's pretty good. Basically, I wanted to make this deck again, obviously because of that change to the ban list, and really also because of Necros of Unicorn and how that card is limited and how Necros is basically not a deck that you'll run into quite often nowadays. I felt that this deck can actually do a lot better than what it once could do because of the fact that, again, you really need your extra deck monster effects to go off in this deck to help you go into your big combo plays, and Necros of Unicorn essentially said no to all of that beforehand. But again, because that card is basically not going to be seen all that much now, I feel very comfortable testing this deck again, and this is going to be the list that I'm going to show all of you guys today for this brand new format. So yeah, let's get right into it, starting off with the monsters. First of all, we're going to start off with the 3 copies of Geargia Armor because this is the best searcher of the deck and we want to see this card as early as possible so that, again, we can set up our big chain sequencing plays in the turn 2 and the turn 3. So again, we have to have the 3 copies of the Geargia Armor. Then we have 3 more copies of Geargia Armor, essentially, in the form of 3 copies of Geargia Arsenal, because, again, we can use this guy to just Lone Fire Blossom himself off to get the armor. So, again, we have, essentially, again, like I said, 6 copies of the Geargia Armor, which is very important for our consistency, as we, again, want to see them turn 1 as soon as possible. So yeah, moving on, we also have the 3 copies of the Accelerator to help us get into our big rank 4 plays and to also be used as level 4 fodder for our big level 8 and our level 7 synchro plays. So again, we also have to have the 3 Accelerator as well for our big plays. Finally, for the last level 4 Geargia monster we are running a 1 copy of Geargia Augur because it is another card that we can open turn 1 because, again, we want to have as much turn 1 consistency in this deck as we possibly can because Geargia does have the problem that if they don't open well, they usually cannot open well for a while until they actually draw into their good cards. So because of that, I wanted to have another relevant normal summon in this deck, and it was pretty much a no-brainer for me to include another copy of Augur because it's essentially a 1 card rank 4, usually being the Gear Dragon X turn 1. So because of that, it just gives us a 7th monster to open with so that we are not breaking as often. So yeah, we are running that 1 copy of Geargia Augur. And then moving on to our final Geargia monsters, we have the 2 copies of the Geargiano Mark II, the 1 copy of the Geargiano Mark I, and finally the 1 copy of Geargiano Mark III. Now, we are running 2 copies of Mark II because this is probably the best one to draw into. Like, if we have to draw any of these Geargianos at any given point, I'd rather draw into a Mark II, which is why that's the one that's at multiples. And then, of course, we have the 1 copy of Geargiano because it can help us recur back our tuners from our graveyard. And then we also have the 1 copy of Mark III now, finally, because we can actually use this to turn our Geargia Gears from A+1 to A+2, which is actually really, really strong. And, of course, just any card that can become A+2 in and of itself is really good. I mean, after all, Sima, Dolce, and Jelly. So yeah, that is going to be our Geargiano aspect of our deck. And then finally, for the tuners, we start off with 1 copy of Genetic Ally Birdman because this is probably the best tuner in the deck, of course, because of the interaction it has with Geargia Accelerator. So yeah, we are running the 1 copy of Birdman. I really wish I could run more, but sadly it is limited. We have the 1 copy of the Nishipachi because I didn't want to draw multiples of this guy, or any tuner in general, so I really wanted to just go a minimalistic route with my tuner lineup. So that is why I only have 1 copy of the Nishipachi when compared to the standard 2, because again, I didn't want to draw into these guys and promote brick hands. So that is again why we only have 1 copy of Nishipachi. And then, of course, we have the 2 copy of the Saizon because Saizon can help us get into our Beredos. And in my opinion, Beredo is the better Karakuri Synchro, in my opinion. So that is, again, why we have 2 copies of Saizon because we need them for our Synchro plays. So yeah, that will round us off from our main deck monsters. Moving on to our spell cards, we have, of course, the 3 copies of the Upstart Goblin because I love me my 37 card consistency. So we have the 3 Upstart Goblin for that. Then we have the 3 copies of the Instant Fusion because this is a 1 card level 8 or level 7 synchro, as well as a 1 card rank 4. And I will say that this deck actually has quite a few 1 card extra deck plays, which is actually really, really cool because, again, you have the Geargia Augur, the 3 copies of the Instant Fusion, and the inevitable 3 copies of Geargia Gear, which I'll show you in a second. And that's essentially 7 cards that we can use to just get a 1 card extra deck monster on the board, which is actually, again, really, really cool for just helping you swing momentum into your favor and to help you get things out like Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend because that card is really cool. So yeah, we are running the 3 copies of Instant Fusion. Then we have two copies of MST, which I still feel like is a very good mainboard card again because pendulums are going to be a thing soon, and until we get Twin Twister, this card is still, in my opinion, going to be a very strong main deck card because again, it's very strong against Performance Pendulum as well as it's good against Magispector as well, and even Cosmo to an extent will be running traps. So again, there is no really bad matchup for MST to be main decked in, and again, it also helps you against Rogue as well. So we are running the two copies of the MST in the main board. Then finally for the last one-offs, we have one copy of Soul Charge because we want to have really big ways to get big monsters back onto our field. And then we also have the one copy of Regeki because blowing up boards and then pushing for OTKs is really fun. So yeah, that will be our entire spell lineup of this deck. Moving on to the traps, we of course are going to start off with the MVP of the trap lineup, which is going to be the three copies of the Geargia Gear. Now this card is unlimited, so yeah, yay, pretty much. I don't know what else to say with this card. This card is it's outstanding. Like it gets you a free rank 4 onto the board whenever you do successfully resolve it, and again, whenever we get that rank 4 onto the board, it can be anything from our Gear Dragon X to an Abyss Dweller that we might need. So it's really, really cool. So yeah, we are running the 3 Gear Gear to help us get, again, that one card explosiveness in this deck. Moving on, we have 3 copies of the Call of the Hunted to help us get monsters back onto our board so that we ensure ourselves that we do not run out of our resources as fast. Then we are running 2 copies of the Mirror Force for just good big destruction in our trap lineup. Now, I personally would run 2 copies of Blazing Mirror Force over this card because unlike Mirror Force by itself, Blazing Mirror Force actually can help you push for damage, which is very essential in this deck. So for me, again, personally, I would run Blazing Mirror Force, but again, it's kind of up to preference of you guys. If you guys want to run Storming Mirror Force over this, then that's, again, completely up to you. I just feel that 2 copies of some sort of Mirror Force is pretty important in this deck because you really want to have some defense for that protect the armor situation that you might find yourself in on turn 1. So yeah, we are running the 2 copies of the Mirror Force. Then we have 1 copy of the Vanity's Emptiness, of course, the 1 copy of Bottomless, the 1 copy of Warning, and then also 1 copy of Time Space Trap Hole because this card is outstanding against Pendulum decks. So yeah, that'll be it for the trap lineup, finishing off with our big one of traps. Okay, so moving on to the extra deck. We start off with the Karakuri Synchros in the form of 2 copies of Karakuri Steel Shogun Model 00X Beredo, and the last other copy of Karakuri Shogun Model 00 Beret. Now, I felt like multiple copies of Beret wasn't essential because of the fact that it can actually punch over relevant things this format. Like, if you look at Cosmo, their 2 best Cosmo monsters, which is the Forerunner and the Dark Destroyer, Beret cannot touch whatsoever. So, because of that, I felt like multiple copies of him wasn't that important. So, that is why, again, I cut him down to 1 copy in this extra deck. And then, of course, we still have to actually run the 2 copies of Beredo because he just gives us free advantage. Because whenever a Karakuri monster switches its battle position, we just draw a card for free, which is really, really good. So, that is, again, why we are running the 2 copies of Beredo. Moving on to our other synchros, we have the Quartet of Ghost Rares. We have the 1 copy of Stardust Dragon because it helps us protect it helps us protect our board from big Dark Hole plays and big Raigekis. So we have the Stardust Dragon for that. We have the 1 copy of Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend because this card is freaking nuts. We have the 1 copy of Clearwing Synchro Dragon because this card can protect all of our synchro monsters in the extra deck. And then we also have the 1 copy of Black Rose Dragon for board nukes. So yeah, that would be the Quartet of Ghost Rares. And I'm sorry, I really like all of these Ghost Rares. They're so pretty. So yeah. And then finally, for the last synchro monster we are running the 1 copy of the Leo Keeper of the Sacred Tree, primarily for the Cosmo and the Magispector matchup, because this card actually does a lot of work, surprisingly, against those matchups, because for Cosmos, they cannot just simply use Dark Destroyer to remove the Leo off of your board, as it cannot be targeted, obviously. And Cosmo Dark Destroyer isn't as big as Leo either, so because of that, Cosmo just really has a hard time getting over Leo outside of the 2 copies of Honest that they should be running. And again, that is only 2 cards in their whole deck that can help you. That can help them, out Leo. So because of that, Leo is very good in that matchup in that regard. And of course, all the Magispector traps outside of the Summon Negator, all targets. So that also helps too. So yeah, we have the 1 copy of Leo to round off our synchro monsters in our lineup. Moving on to the Xyz monsters in our extra deck, we have the excuse me if I can talk. Wow. My speaking has been degrading as this video has been going on. Oh my god. But yeah, we start off with 2 copies of Geargia X because we need it to search out all of our Karakuri tuners as well as our Gen X ally Birdman. Or if we also need, we can also use it to just spam rank 4s onto the board because he can also search out any of the Geargia monsters as well. So again, it just really helps us toolbox our monster lineup for whatever we might need at any given time. Then we have the one copy of Abyss Dweller because this card is really good against Cosmo. We have the one copy of Dark Rebellion Xyz Dragon because big monsters in our extra deck are pretty important. And then finally we have the one copy of Castel for spot removal of our opponent's Pendulum Zones, preferably anyway. So yeah, that'll run off from our Xyz monsters. Moving on to our fusions. We have, of course, the two copies of the Elder Entity Norden because, you know, we have instant fusion. This card is important to run with instant fusion. Yeah, I really don't have to say anything more about that. So yes, those are going to be the fusion monsters to round up our extra deck. And then, of course, I'm not going to say anything now. You guys should know why I'm showing this. So yeah. So yeah, guys, that will be very much it for my updated Geargia Karakuri deck profile. Now, I really will say that I do like this deck, this coming format, because again, like I said, it has so many explosive cards in the deck with Instant Fusion, Geargia Gear, and all of the other combo plays that you can do, that I feel that this deck could actually be a very strong rogue pick for any given regionals maybe that you guys might be going to. Definitely it is a very strong deck at any given locals as well, because again, this deck is just, again, it can OTK off the white, and it can OTK at the snap of your fingers pretty much, so... Again, I will say that this deck is a lot of fun again now that Necros of Unicorn is phased out of the metagame. So yeah, I hope you all very much did enjoy this update to a deck that you guys all have been very much requesting for the past couple of months. So yeah, hope you all did enjoy, and as always, this is QRem from the Trinity of Lift, and I'll see all of you guys later. Peace out.